You felt it this morning. Maybe you didn't notice, but it was there. A smell, a texture, a sound, a sight, and your face did something you didn't choose. Your lip curled, your nose wrinkled, your stomach shifted. And before your brain had formed a single conscious thought, your body had already made a decision. That reaction has a name: disgust. And science is only now beginning to understand what it actually is. Because here is the part that changes everything. Disgust is not an emotion. Not really. It is not sadness, not fear, not anger. Those emotions evolved to help you respond to things happening around you. Disgust evolved to protect something far more specific. It evolved to protect you from the inside out. And the reason it exists, the reason it is wired into your nervous system so deeply that even newborns display it, goes back much further than you probably think. Start with the basics. You have a body. That body is a biological system. It is warm, it is wet, it is full of nutrients. And from the perspective of every bacterium, every parasite, every pathogen on Earth, it is an extraordinarily attractive host. For nearly all of human history, the world around you was filled with invisible threats you could not see, could not name, and could not cure. Contaminated meat, infected wounds, parasitic water, diseased animals. The wrong bacteria in the wrong place at the wrong moment could kill you in days. So your ancestors evolved a defense system. Not antibiotics, not germ theory, something older and more elegant than that. They evolved a way of detecting and avoiding threats before those threats ever entered the body. They evolved disgust. The psychologist Paul Rozin at the University of Pennsylvania spent decades studying what triggers disgust and why, and what he found was striking. Disgust is not random. It is not cultural noise. It clusters. The same categories of things trigger it in human after human, culture after culture, across thousands of miles and thousands of years. Bodily waste, rotting food, wounds and lesions, vermin, death, contact with strangers' bodily fluids, things that seem to violate the boundary of the body. These are not accidents. These are the precise categories of things most likely to carry infection, contamination, or parasitic threat. Your disgust system is a pathogen detection module. It is your body's ancient early warning alarm, and it is extraordinarily sensitive. Rozin and his colleagues ran an experiment in the 1980s that has since become one of the most famous in disgust research. They offered participants a glass of apple juice. Everyone said yes. Then they dropped a sterilized, brand-new cockroach into the glass, pulled it out immediately, and asked participants again if they wanted the juice. It was sterile. It had been tested. There was no actual contamination, but almost no one would drink it. The juice felt ruined. That is not irrational. That is your ancestral operating system working exactly as designed. For hundreds of thousands of years, anything that looked like contamination probably was contamination. The cost of being wrong was death. So your brain learned to be conservative. It learned to say no first and ask questions never. Better to throw away a perfectly good piece of meat than to eat a contaminated one and die. This is what the researcher Jonathan Haidt at New York University calls the behavioral immune system. It is a second immune system running alongside your biological one, and it operates faster, cheaper, and on less information. Your white blood cells respond to pathogens that are already inside you. Your disgust system tries to make sure they never get in. Now here is where things get strange. Because that system did not stay contained to rotten food and infected wounds. It spread. Human beings are social animals, and social living creates its own category of threats. Cheaters who exploit the group, people who break shared rules, strangers whose behavior is unpredictable, unfairness that destabilizes cooperation. And sometime in the long history of human social evolution, disgust was recruited to manage those threats too. The same circuitry that recoils from a festering wound began to recoil from a moral violation. You have felt this. Someone cuts in line. A politician lies in a way that feels brazen and obvious. You read about a story of betrayal or cruelty and your stomach turns, not metaphorically, literally. Your gut responds. You describe it the same way you would describe food poisoning. That was disgusting. That made me sick. I couldn't stomach it. The language is not accidental. The feeling is the same feeling, and brain imaging confirms it. Studies using fMRI scanners have shown that the insula cortex, the region most active during physical disgust, the region that processes taste and bodily sensation, is also the region most active when people experience moral outrage. The pathogen detector became the morality enforcer. The system found a new job. And this is where your ancient inheritance starts to create modern problems. Because a system built for detecting visible, concrete threats like rotting meat does not always update correctly when the threat landscape changes. When your disgust system fires in response to a moral situation, it does not supply you with arguments or evidence. It supplies you with a feeling, a deep, visceral, urgent sense of wrongness. And that feeling feels like knowledge. It feels like certainty. It feels like proof. The philosopher Jonathan Haidt, who also studies moral psychology, calls this moral dumbfounding. Ask someone why they find a certain action morally wrong, and often they will struggle to explain. They will offer reasons, and when those reasons are challenged, they will search for new ones. But they will rarely change their mind, because the conviction did not come from the reasons. It came first, fully formed, from the gut. The reasons are constructed afterward, to justify what the body already decided. Your disgust system does not deliberate. It acts. It was never designed to weigh evidence or consider context. It was designed to keep you away from threats fast, before you had time to get close enough to be infected. Now apply that to a crowded modern world full of people who look different, live differently, eat differently, smell differently, and hold different beliefs. Your ancient threat detection system was calibrated in small bands of humans who spent their whole lives surrounded by people they knew. Everyone unfamiliar was a potential risk. Everything novel was a potential danger. That calibration has not been updated. Not fully. Not in the time modern society has existed, which means your disgust system still fires, sometimes, at things that carry no real threat at all. Research by the psychologist Mark Schaller at the University of British Columbia found that when people are primed to feel more vulnerable to illness, given fake news articles about dangerous local disease outbreaks, for example, they become measurably more biased against strangers, more conformist in their behavior, and more hostile to anything that violates social norms. The pathogen threat does not just make you wash your hands. It makes you contract socially. It makes you pull toward the familiar and away from the different. This is the shadow side of your most ancient defense. A system built to protect you from invisible biological threats bleeds into the way you see other people, into the way you respond to difference, into the way you judge and exclude and recoil from things that are unfamiliar rather than actually dangerous. And yet, here is the part that does not get said enough. Disgust is not your enemy. It is one of the oldest, most successful survival tools in your biological history. The populations whose disgust systems worked did not eat the wrong thing and die. They survived. They passed the system down. To their children and their children's children, all the way to you, sitting here, alive, with a lip that still curls at exactly the right moment. The instinct is not broken. The world it was built for simply changed faster than evolution can follow. And knowing that, knowing where the feeling comes from, knowing what it was built to do, knowing the gap between its original function and the modern contexts it now fires in, that knowledge changes something. Not the feeling. The feeling will still come, but the story you tell about it afterward. The weight you give it when you are deciding what to actually do. Because your ancestors did not have that gap, they did not know why their lip curled. They just obeyed. But you are here, right now, reading this, which means you can do something they never could. You can feel the feeling and ask a question they never thought to ask. Is this a warning about something real? Or is this just an ancient alarm going off in a world it was not built for? The next time your stomach turns, at a smell, at a person, at an idea, you will feel it before you think it. You always will. That has not changed and will not change. But now you know what that feeling is. You know where it lives. You know why it exists. And that changes everything about what you do next.